Your brain did not store your proudest moments as vividly as it stored the ones that made you want to disappear. That was not an accident. Right now, somewhere in the folds of your memory, there is a moment you would pay money to erase. You said something wrong in front of people who mattered, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 15, and your brain filed it under "never forget." The promotion you earned is a blur, but the joke that landed wrong plays in high definition. And here is what should unsettle you. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system working exactly as designed. For most of human history, being rejected by your group was not embarrassing, it was lethal. Exile from the tribe meant no shared food, no shared warmth, no protection from predators. So your ancestors who felt social mistakes deeply, who replayed them, who lost sleep over them, they were the ones who survived to become your ancestors. The ones who shrugged off humiliation did not pass on their genes. They passed into extinction. You inherited a nervous system calibrated for a world where a misstep at the wrong gathering could end your bloodline. And that nervous system does not know the difference between a tribal council and a work meeting. It treats both as survival events. But knowing this does not stop the replay, which is exactly what researchers wanted to understand. In the early 2000s, psychologist Susan Nolen-Hoeksema documented something she called rumination, the involuntary loop of replaying negative events. She found that it was not random. It targeted moments where the self was under social evaluation. Job interviews, first dates, public speaking, meeting your partner's parents. Any moment where you were being judged. Your brain flags these moments as high-priority threats and stamps them into long-term memory with unusual intensity. This is why you can remember what you were wearing during an embarrassing moment from a decade ago, but not what you wore yesterday. The emotional charge acts like a preservative, and the brain has a specific window when it prefers to process these memories, the hours when you are trying to sleep. When you are awake and active, your prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part, keeps a leash on the emotional brain. It suppresses irrelevant intrusions so you can focus on the present. But when you lie down to sleep, that leash loosens. The prefrontal cortex begins to power down, and the amygdala, your threat detection center, runs unsupervised. This is why 3 a.m. is not random. It is the hour when your guard is lowest and your archives are most accessible. Your brain uses this window to replay unresolved threats, searching for patterns it might have missed. It is trying to solve a problem that no longer exists. The party where you spilled a drink on yourself ended 15 years ago, but your amygdala did not get the memo. It still treats that memory as an open case file. Which brings us to something stranger. The memory you are replaying may not even be accurate. Cognitive psychologist Elizabeth Loftus spent decades proving that memory is not a recording, it is a reconstruction. Every time you recall an event, you are not playing back a file, you are rebuilding it from fragments. And each reconstruction introduces small errors. The embarrassing moment you keep replaying has been edited by every replay. The pauses feel longer than they were. The judgmental looks may never have existed. Your brain added them in post-production. It noticed your shame and assumed there must have been an audience for it. So it invented one. This is called the spotlight effect. The documented tendency to believe others noticed you far more than they actually did. Studies by Thomas Gilovich at Cornell showed that people consistently overestimate how much attention others pay to their mistakes. In one experiment, participants wore embarrassing t-shirts and predicted that nearly half the room noticed. The actual number who noticed was less than a quarter of that. Everyone is too busy being the protagonist of their own movie to notice your scene. But your brain does not believe that because it cannot afford to. From an evolutionary perspective, assuming everyone noticed your mistake is safer than assuming no one did. If you assume the worst and it did not happen, you lose nothing but sleep. If you assume nothing happened and it did, you might lose your place in the tribe. Your brain would rather keep you anxious than let you be blindsided. Which is why understanding this mechanism rarely stops the replays. You can know exactly why your brain does this and still feel the cringe at 3 a.m. Knowledge does not overwrite instinct. It just watches it happen. But there is something that does help, and it is counterintuitive. Your brain replays these moments because it categorizes them as unfinished. This is the Zeigarnik effect, the principle that incomplete tasks occupy the mind more than completed ones. Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik first noticed that waiters remembered incomplete orders better than completed ones. Once the task was done, it vanished from working memory. Your embarrassing memories feel unfinished because they are. They never reached a resolution. There was no moment where someone said, "I forgive you," or "It's okay," or "I didn't even notice." You just left the situation and moved on with your day. But your brain did not move on. It has been waiting for closure that never came. So here is what some researchers have found works. Giving the memory an ending. Writing about the memory in full. What happened, how you felt, what you feared others thought. Then writing what actually happened afterward. Nothing collapsed. No exile occurred. You survived. This recontextualizes the memory. It closes the loop. The brain no longer treats it as an open case because you told it how the story ended. There is another technique that works differently but targets the same mechanism. Instead of writing the memory, you deliberately replay it, but with a twist. You play it to the end, and then you keep going. You picture what happened the next day, the next week, the next year. You force the brain to see that the story continued, and continued fine. The embarrassment was not a cliff edge. It was a speed bump you drove over years ago. But there is a catch with both of these techniques. They work best when the memory is old, when enough time has passed to see that nothing catastrophic followed. Fresh embarrassments need something different. They need to be starved of attention. Every time you engage with an intrusive memory, every time you argue with it, analyze it, or try to fix it, you reinforce it. You signal to your brain, "This matters, keep showing it to me." The more you fight the intrusion, the stronger it gets. This is called the ironic process theory. Trying not to think about something makes you think about it more. Daniel Wegner demonstrated this famously. Tell someone not to think of a white bear, and they will think of little else. The monitoring process that checks whether you are thinking about it keeps bringing it back. So, for fresh embarrassments, the strategy is not engagement. It is acknowledgement without elaboration. You notice the memory surfacing. You label it. There's that embarrassment again. And you let it pass. No analysis, no argument, no attempt to resolve. The memory arrives, you acknowledge its presence, and you redirect your attention elsewhere. This is harder than it sounds, because the brain insists the memory is urgent. It generates physical discomfort, the cringe, the flush, the urge to distract yourself. That discomfort is not a sign that you need to engage with the memory. It is a test. If you can tolerate the discomfort without acting on it, the signal weakens over time. The brain learns. This memory does not require emergency processing. It gets filed lower in the priority queue. But here is what nobody talks about. These memories serve a purpose beyond torturing you. The person who never cringes at their own past is not enlightened. They are missing a feedback system. The cringe is evidence that you have grown, that you can now see what you could not see then. You cringe because you have developed social awareness you did not possess at the time of the event. The discomfort is the gap between who you were and who you are now. If you felt nothing looking back, it would mean you learned nothing since. The memory is not punishing you. It is showing you the distance you have traveled, which does not make it pleasant, but it makes it meaningful. There is one more thing that matters about these replays. The moments that haunt you most reveal what you value most. If a memory keeps surfacing, ask yourself, what was at stake in that moment? Usually, it is something you cared about deeply: competence, belonging, respect, connection. You do not cringe about moments that did not matter to you. You cringe about the job interview because competence matters to you. You cringe about the dinner party because belonging matters to you. You cringe about what you said to your father because his respect matters to you. The replay is a map of your values written in discomfort. So the question is not, how do I make this stop? Because you cannot, not entirely. The question is, what is this telling me about what I care about? Because here is something worth knowing. The people who remember their embarrassments most vividly tend to be the same people who care most about others. High self-monitors, people attuned to social dynamics, experience more cringe because they notice more. The same sensitivity that makes them good friends, partners, and colleagues makes them vulnerable to the 3 a.m. replay. It is not a bug in their personality. It is the shadow side of a feature. The cost of caring is remembering. So here you are, at 3 a.m., or perhaps any quiet moment, and the memory surfaces again. The joke that fell flat, the sentence that came out wrong, the moment you wish you could edit. You have a few options. You can fight it and strengthen it. You can engage with it endlessly and reinforce it. Or you can acknowledge it, give it the ending it is looking for, and let it pass. Write the story to its actual ending. You survived. You continued. You are here. The tribe did not exile you. The world did not end. You woke up the next day and kept going. That is the ending your brain keeps searching for. Give it to the memory and watch it fade from the priority queue. Not disappear. Memories like this never fully disappear. But they can become quieter, less urgent, less raw. They can shift from open wounds to old scars you rarely touch. And someday, when the memory surfaces at 3 a.m., you might find you can just nod at it. Oh, that one again. And turn over and sleep. The brain that remembers every mistake is the same brain that learned from each one. And that is why you are different now than you were then.